everybody. This is the military spouse listening session for the Naval Base Kitsap region. To give you a little bit of history, this started with effort. Well, actually, this started several years ago with the creation of the Washington State Military Transition Council, which brought together different partners, federal, state, military, local, around supporting the transitioning service members and veterans in Washington State. In the last year and a half, one of the things that the council identified as a high priority was the support not just for the service members and veterans, but also our extended military families, particularly our military spouses. And they had established two priorities, one of which was employment support for military spouses. Following on that, the governor updated the executive order that created the Military Transition Council, made it the Military Transition and Readiness Council because spouse employment is an issue of military readiness, and established a number of priorities around support for military spouse employment. One of the things that Alfie and Susie decided that before we actually develop any programs, we actually need to go out and talk to military spouses, talk about what's working, what's not working, and what we need to be focusing on in order to make substantive, real, actionable improvements. So with that, this is the military spouse listening session for the Naval Base Kitsap region, and we will start off with some introductions. I'd actually like to start with Mike Robinson. Mike, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Hello, and welcome everybody to WorkSource Kitsap. My name is Mike Robinson. I'm the one-stop operator for the Olympic Consortium. I oversee the service delivery of all the employment services and business services in the three-county area between Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson County. I'm actually a Navy vet, retired myself, and my bride knows the struggle too real, so I do appreciate everything the spouses do to take care of our service members while they're out doing their jobs.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Margaret Hess, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Margaret Hess. I'm the administrator for the WorkSource Centers serving Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson counties, and I've been really excited about this event and particularly appreciative that we're asking the customer what their needs are. And as a WorkSource system, WorkSource Centers, we've been working to reach out and try to connect with and engage our military spouses, because our veteran services team is also working with the veterans here, and I think have an understanding of some of the opportunities and challenges that you face. And so I'm just grateful that you're here to provide us with your input to help us move forward and connecting with you. And as a Vietnam era military spouse, although we weren't married, at that time, I had a lot of friends, so I do have some insights into the challenges that you face. So thank you for coming, and we're very grateful for hosting you.
Thank you.
And our esteemed commissioner, Susie, and Alfie.
Excellent. We have Britt quickly introduce herself as our sort of co-host for this event.
Absolutely. My name is Britt Feldman. I'm actually the Regional Work and Family Life Coordinator. I actually oversee our transition programs and a couple of other programs for Navy Region Northwest, which includes Naval Base Kitsap, Everett, and Whidbey Island. And so I am delighted to be here today. I actually sat in on the spouse listening sessions on Monday at Whidbey Island and heard some really remarkable stories. So I'm really tickled that you guys are here, because I know one of the things is hearing some of your struggles actually it's already made an impact on me to see what we can do even at the local level or our level, but also having Susie and Alfie and everybody here at the table to be part of this whole thing, to see what changes can already occur. So what a great partnership we have. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Susie.
So hi, I'm Susie Levine, and I'm the Commissioner for the Employment Security Department. So that is the organization that does a number of things, including unemployment insurance, paid family medical leave. Most importantly for right here is that we also do reemployment services. So we administer the funding for our WorkSource offices, and we also do a lot of the employment support. We also have our leavers and DVOPs, our local veterans employment representatives, and our disabled veterans outreach program specialists. So they are around the table, and you'll hear it from them in a moment, but basically a focus on how are we helping our members who have served us in the military we serve military spouses to some degree, but not enough. And I am also the daughter of a military spouse. My father served in Vietnam, and my mother was back in Baltimore while my dad was serving, and I've heard stories throughout my many years about her struggles in that capacity. So this is very near and dear to my heart, but what has been incredibly moving is recognizing the incredible talent that is available among our military spouse population, and that we are doing such a poor job cultivating, curating, and tapping into that talent. And I am very dedicated to fixing that. What is also very clear to me is that we as a nation have done a very poor job helping you achieve your employment potential and your earning potential. And especially when we ask our veterans to serve, and God willing, they come out safely and they come out with themselves having achieved a 15, 20, 25-year career, what does that do to the spouse? The spouse is like 2 or 3 years in on their career. Unfortunately, some of our military members get injured and their earning potential has become curtailed. Well, we didn't then help their spouse be able to carry the load for that family. So what we have been doing is this listening tour to hear from you, get these original stories, and be able to put it in a local context here. And Alfie and I are going to be compiling what we are hearing, reflecting it back, and then working on what are some of the steps that can be done locally. We've also invited some folks from our federal delegation here. What can be done nationally that we can provide a voice to, and how do we amplify your voice, your stories, and your abilities? And I just want to finish off by just saying thank you so much for your incredible service to our country.
Thank you. Alfie.
Everything that Susie said. My name is Alfie Alvarado, and I am the director of your Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. So what do veterans have to do with military spouses? Everything. You have everything to do with our veterans and their success when they transition from the military into the community, and even when our service members come into our communities and are part of the community, because not everybody lives on base. So you become part of the citizenship of this state, and also your success as a family member is critical to the success of the family ultimately. So if we do it right, as our service members and the families come to Washington State, and we have in place all of those systems that are going to be able to allow for that success, then as a veteran, I'm going to have much less work to do and be able to focus on other issues and reinvest resources on those things that still need to be managed in the state. So we have some selfish interest in making sure that success results in a better adjusted family, in family wages, in portable careers, in solutions that are going to be able to be lasting, so that when you leave here, if you're going to be going to the next duty station, first of all, you can be an ambassador and take this story to the next duty station and hopefully continue making change. And number two, that you're going to be successful all the way around without having to start over and over and over again. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We have some common themes as we have gone through some of these sessions, but the fact is that every time we have a session like this, we hear something new. And that's what we need to, hear, because ultimately, and starting probably this October, we're going to have a hearing with our legislature, with one of our committees on Veterans Affairs. And therefore, that's going to start that ball rolling and being able for our legislatures to get a good sense of what is it that we're hearing, and then for them to have, the ideas and get the feedback from us on what can be done. So I'm going to leave it at that, and this is what Mark usually talks about, a reverse town hall. We're not going to be talking to you or at you. You're going to be talking to us on your challenges, but we also want to hear your solutions. Out of the box things, no matter how crazy something may be, we want to hear it because it may not be that crazy.
All right, excellent. We are also fortunate here to have some of our local leadership, including Elizabeth Court with the local Workforce Development Council. Elizabeth, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Court. Thank you so much. It's just fantastic to be here with all this innovation happening and all the ideas that are gonna come here. With my background in the situation, my granddad was in World War II. He was gone for 6 years. During that period, he was home for he came home 3 times. And I can remember my mom telling me stories about how lonely it was and how sad it was and how worried they were. And it didn't really strike me until a few years later. So I was enlisted, Cape May, Coast Guard. There were 80 guys, there were 6 women, and I remember it was billet time, because after A school it was billet time, and 3 of the guys were engaged, and all of a sudden they weren't anymore. And that was, it's like, wow, this is, it started to dawn on me the kind of impact this could have. And so it's really, it's a long, proud history of the hardship that the service people give, and their spouses have been completely unrecognized for this over all these years. And I've heard this from many different people. My particular, more narrow focus interest is on the workforce development and the credential piece. So, for example, I was speaking with a woman the other day who moved up here from a military spouse who moved up here from Nevada, and she does hair, and it's like, well, if I had paid an extra $80 a month, I could have kept my license for a couple of different states. Now I found out we're going to go back to Nevada. I don't have my credential, because now I have to go take the test again. And it's just like, okay, that's the kind of solid stuff that at the local level, boots on the ground, that I can want to be helping to fix. So that's kind of, from the policy piece, but then give me the policy, and I want to be the person who helps make that happen.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We also have some representatives from our congressional delegation, and so Katie Crabtree, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon. My name is Katie. I'm Congressman Derek Kilmer's outreach coordinator for Kitsap and Mason counties. Thank you, Susie and Alfie, for having me today. Excited to be here and listen. We want to be a good partner in this work, so happy to hear how we can work back in DC to be helpful to y'all. And I grew up in this area, so many of my friends had mom and dad in the military, and this work is really close to my heart, so thank you for all that you do.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have David Perez here?
Over here.
David, excellent. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm David Perez. So I just recently started the position as veteran representative for the Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler. And so a little bit background about myself. I did 11 years in the Navy, and I was stationed at Naval Hospital Bremerton. So getting out of the Navy, I found myself working for veterans at a Veterans Resource Center. And so just recently moving on to Jamie's position, I found out that it's a passion of mine. So anything that we can do to help out and just, listen to you guys and do whatever we can to fix some of the issues that you guys are having, I'm more than happy to, take notes and pass it on to my DC staff.
Excellent. Thank you, David. All right. We're going to do introductions of the attendees here. Now, I warn you, we have a very robust attendance here today, so we could spend the rest of the meeting just doing introductions. I'm going to ask if folks can just introduce themselves, their name. If they're here representing an organization, let us know what organization that is. And also, if you're a spouse, let us know that you are a spouse. And I'm going to start with the folks in the room, and I'm going to give a heads up to the folks who are online that in a moment I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, because almost everybody is identified as self-muted, and you may want to practice that while you're hearing the introductions for the other folks. So we'll start at the end of the table here, so go right ahead.
I'm Teresa Eckstein. I'm the State Level Equal Opportunity Officer and the Equal Opportunity Director for Employment Security Department.
Alyssa Durkin. I am the new program supervisor from WTC.
Okay. And I will ask folks to speak up, so because we got 4 hockey pucks on the floor here that are speaker phones, so I want to make sure that you speak up so that the folks online can hear you.
I am Lucy Bench. I actually have a dual thing. I'm the program analyst for the WDC, but I am also a military spouse, and I'm a mother to 2 military kids.
I'm Jason Willett. I'm the Veterans and Military Family Program Operator for the Employment Security Department.
And for folks who don't know me, I'm Mark Sullivan. I'm the advisor to the Military Transition and Readiness Council.
Hi, I'm Gary Lott, Communications for Washington Department of Veterans Affairs, and we're actually live streaming onto our Washington Department of Veterans Affairs, Yes Vets, and Employment Security Department Facebook pages as well.
I'm Rachel Roberts. I work for your Washington State Department of Veteran Affairs, working for helping people get into apprenticeship jobs as they transition out, or we're really trying to focus on spouses because those follow you. The work that you put in wherever you go, apprenticeship work will follow you to the next location. So we're trying to work with spouses to get them hooked up with jobs as you PCS from place to place as well.
I'm Janet Alexander. I'm a spouse of a retired Coast Guard, and I am the ambassador for Operation Pop Smoke, and I am an alumni from Commissions.
I'm Adrian. I'm the local Veterans Employment Representative for WorkSource Kitsap here at this office, and I'm really excited because Mr. Pettis and I, we used to be stationed together over at Naval Hospital Bremerton, so I'm trying not to jump out of my seat. I assist with all the spouses that are about to transition, your spouses that are about to be transitioning out of the military or about to retire, one of the two.
All right.
My name is Jeff Flood. I am the supervisor here at the WorkSource Kitsap office, and I am a Navy veteran.
Thank you.
So good to have you on.
Hi, my name is Anna Patterson, and I am a Navy spouse.
My name is Deb Kaiser. I'm WorkSource Specialist here in the Kitsap, the Bremerton office, and I'm one of 2 WorkSource specialists specifically identified to work with military spouses.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth McWhite. I'm a career specialist here, and I also assist with helping getting back military spouses. So Deb and I are in partnership trying to do that to help these spouses to definitely gain back employment.
My name is Jacqueline Elizabeth. I'm new here. I'm a spouse.
Welcome.
Thank you. Professional organizer. I run a business called Staying Simple.
What is that again?
I'm a professional organizer. I have a business called Staying Simple.
Is it stayingsimple.com?
Not there yet. I just started back home and then we moved. So
You're starting simple.
yeah.
I'm Rachel Cornett. I'm a Navy spouse and a Navy vet.
My name is Nancy Zellers. I'm a Marine, and I'm a vet rep here at Kitsap WorkSource, and I'm happy that you all are here.
I'm Kathy Wansley, and I am the administrative assistant at WorkSource Kitsap, as well as a former military spouse and a proud mother of the EDMC on the Seawolf.
Excellent. Okay, here's where we test to see how well the technology is working. So I'm going to start. I have a list of names of individuals who have come online, organized by first name. So I am going to start with Anavia Cottle. Can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Anavia Cottle. I'm a proud mother of 2 small little girls. I have a 2-year-old and an 11-month-old. And my husband is currently active duty Navy. So yeah, that's about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anavia. Heidi Adet, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Heidi Adet. I am the Communications and Legislative Director for your Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs.
Excellent. All right. I have somebody who called in on a phone line. They're currently identified as caller 2, and it doesn't look like you're muted. Can you introduce yourself? It may be somebody who is also connected on their computer and just using their phone for audio. Let's go to Christine Moreland. Can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Christine Moreland. I'm the Workforce Readiness Director for the Washington State SHRM, which is Society for Human Resource Management. And also our Washington State SHRM is partnered with Yes Vets.
Excellent. Thank you, Christine. Flora Estrada, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Flora Estrada, and I'm with the Office of Financial Management, State HR. I am a veteran workforce strategist. I am also a veteran and a military spouse.
Excellent. Thank you, Flora. Maria Garcia Hernandez, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Maria Garcia Hernandez, also known as Terry, and I'm the Consolidated Veteran Services Representative for WorkSource 2018 and WorkSource Okanagan, and the proud mother of an Army veteran as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Mary Forbes, can you unmute and introduce yourself? You may still be muted, Mary. All right, we'll come back to Mary. Melinda Aum, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Melinda Ulm from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. I'm the Human Resources Admin Assistant. Just here listening in, hoping to get some insight from our military spouses. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Melinda. And Trey Fitzgerald, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
I'm Trey Fitzgerald. I'm from BJS as the Talent Acquisition Manager. Calling in just kind of hear about the best practices and just kind of learn a little bit more about as far as recruiting military spouses.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Trey. So we actually were able to connect with everybody there for who are online. So let's go ahead and get started with the reverse listening session. I will note, as Gary had mentioned earlier, this is being live streamed as well on Facebook. It will also be recorded, so your comments will be preserved for posterity and made available to anyone who approaches afterwards online. We also will be monitoring the comments that are coming in through Facebook Live and trying to introduce those, or we will capture them after the session if you're hearing this in a recorded version. So, as was mentioned, this is a reverse town hall. This is an opportunity for spouses to share your input and recommendations and experiences. Historically, with the other sessions we've held, this has evolved a little bit organically. We have a few questions to help prompt discussion, but it will go wherever it goes. So we appreciate your candid input, and we will start off with, what are your most significant career roadblocks as a military spouse? And what are some solutions that you have seen working effectively here or elsewhere? And with that, we're handing it over to you. Please.
Well, moving every few years is a challenge. Not knowing when you're going to move half the time, short fuse orders that come up, not being able to let your current employer know what's going on, to be fair to them, not having enough time to set up something in advance, all the challenges of the move itself, which usually fall upon you, in the middle of all of this other stuff, that normal family stuff, taking care of your family, taking care of your kiddos. Chronic underemployment. I know you've heard this stuff before, but it's true.
We need to hear we need to hear your stories.
I mean, so I got out of the Navy in 2003 after almost 11 years. I did what I could while I was in. I got out because it was too hard for our family to be a dual military family. I got out with the intention of using, for me, I was lucky to have my BA and my GI Bill. So I was able to go to school, chip away at a degree, and then eventually 2 degrees, and it's good. Meanwhile, people who were on the same level as me didn't have that opportunity, and may or not, they didn't even have my CAA at that time, so you piecemeal and do piecemeal jobs, and it's hard to get yourself into the field that you want to go into, because you're in the middle of school, you're dealing with the fact that your resume looks like, a puzzle piece. There's so many different things. I've done this, I've worn this hat, and this hat, and this hat, and this hat,
Sorry, can I ask, when we're sharing today, for everybody who doesn't know the acronyms, if you could say.
My CAA, I don't remember the full acronym, but it's a career program, which is fantastic. Now that it's been developed, and it's been developed in response to the fact that people do not have access to transferable or portable careers. So people who maybe want to be a medical assistant, or maybe a 2-year type degree path or apprenticeship type thing, my CAA, depending on your spouse's rank, is available to spouses to learn a transferable, portable career, which is it's just fantastic. If I'd had that at that time, I may have pursued that. I don't know, but or in my particular situation, just for this particular transfer, knowing it's hard to know whether you're working in a really great job that you love, and then you have to move, whether there's going to be a spot for you or a type of job that's even akin to what you're used to when you move somewhere. I had to move out. I was blessed and lucky enough to fall into a position similar to the one that I had when we PCS, this particular PCS is permanent change of station. Okay. Had to think about it. But I had to move several months in advance. I lost money in the cost of living adjustment. I had to put money out, increase debt to be able to cover 2 households for a few months, just for me to get to the job. And that job was understanding enough to wait for me. I was hired in March and I didn't get there until late April. That was my spouse and my family didn't come for another few months after that. Those are the kinds of things that you deal with if you even want to try to stay in a career path. If I hadn't gotten the job that I got this time, which again, I'm lucky, I'm extremely lucky, I would have had to go backwards again, which I do almost every time I move. I have to start and get my way in, and by the time that I'm getting to the point where people know who I am and I have networked enough, I'm leaving again. So I may have known somebody from this duty station or this duty station, and sometimes that helps me, because it's a military family, and even though it's a huge military family, we're still a military family. But it's very frustrating. And I'm somebody, like I said, I'm lucky. I've been able to access and I've known about resources. I can guarantee you 90% of the younger spouses right now have no clue that all of this is available. I didn't even know some of this was available to me. I'm gonna have to start researching the veteran stuff because I'm eligible. My husband is hopefully retiring here. We're gonna be eligible for that for him,
Good choice.
Yeah. He's from Washington State, so I think that's part of why we're here. But, and as much as people are not supposed to discriminate against us, I've been a hiring manager. I know how hard it is to retain quality people and to train somebody up into that position and to get them comfortable. And I get that, a lot of people are leaving faster than they used to. You don't all stay in the same career path for 30 years anymore. But people are reticent and they don't necessarily want to. And it's very clear when you see where my locations are that I'm a Navy spouse, and I have been very clearly discriminated against in interviews. They're not supposed to, they're not supposed to. But how much time and energy are you gonna put into fighting an EEO claim because somebody decided that they didn't want to hire? By the time you're done with that claim, the job's been hired, why would you want to go work for somebody who was discriminating against you in the first place? So, and then the last thing that's been a challenge, just life stuff happens. Everybody knows the challenges of childcare, and that's for everybody. Any working parent has a challenge with childcare, and there's a dearth of childcare resources. But somebody who stays put and has a family member in the area or has friends and families and they've had relationships that they've developed for 15 plus years. I knew this kid when I was in high school, knows that they have somebody that they have to rely on when my hours are wonky, which they are, because I still support the military with what I do. My hours are all over the place. Knowing that I have somebody, if something is going to happen in the middle of the night when he's not here and I'm not here, or my hours are outside of the normal working hours or whatever. Or I have a child who's a toddler or a preschooler. I stayed home because that's what I had to do because I had no other options. Or being overseas is another example. There are no jobs because of whatever. These are the kind of things, and then the last thing, this is a lot. This is just my personal experience. That's why I'm here. The last thing, we choose to be married to who we choose to be married to, and I have no regrets in that at all. But it's painful sometimes. It's painful emotionally and for validation purposes, I guess, to be that person at home or be that person who, you know, isn't in the workforce. And it's painful when things happen. Like another really bad example that happened to me, I was using my VA benefit loans to buy the house that we just bought in Paulsbo. Mine. And we were using USAA to finance our loan. And in the middle of the process, they were like, we're having a problem because you can't guarantee you're gonna have employment when you move there. And I'm like, this is my loan. And I had already networked and already reached out to the program director. I had an email saying, we'll find a spot for you somewhere. It wasn't enough. And the only reason that we were able to get the house is because he had enough income on his own. Never mind that I was making $55,000 a year on my own, and so suggestions for you guys, for people, I do have them.
Bring it.
I think, in complete disclosure, I work for Naval Welfare and Recreation. I chose to go into this field as a passion of mine after being active duty. And I encounter people all the time, obviously, spouses, active duty members, I work with the junior service members, I work with people who are transitioning. So part of me wants to know this stuff just because I want to know this stuff because I talk a lot, obviously, and I talk a lot to people. And I like to give people those resources. But that's what's missing. That's the piece that's missing with this. So going to FRG assemblies, family readiness groups, there's that. Going to ombudsman meetings, or getting into the smaller, intimate type of settings is where people need to be. If somebody said they were in outreach something, I don't remember where I heard, okay, that's what we're talking about. I mean, getting into social media. I posted this on the Kitsap military spouses group, hoping that people, I don't know if anybody signed up for it based off of it. I was like, please go with me. Nobody went. But they meet once a week for a coffee show social in different places. It's that one-on-one talking that people need. Because I'm sorry, but a lot of times we're distracted by a million things. Everybody is. But if somebody says, hey, I'm going, do you want to go with me? Or, hey, it makes that personal connection. They're more want to do it, and they're not nervous about it. And they don't, because there's this whole battle, like I said, in your head of like, I'm not employed right now. And it's like a cycle. But I'm done. That was all. It's talking to people in that outreach piece. I had no clue, and I've been here a year and a half, that some of these resources were here. So I'm gonna learn more about them before I leave, or talk to people and try to pass that on. But that's the kind of stuff that we're missing. That's the piece that we're missing, and it's a huge piece. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anybody else want to share their experience, either in person here or online? Please.
So I'm originally from Groton, Connecticut. It's another big naval area, and I actually started my business because I got really severely sick from Lyme disease, and I was like, okay, I want to do what I'm passionate about. And when we got married, we're like, actually having this business could work really wherever you're located, because the organizing goes really well with a lot of the military families, with all the moves, helping people really get a system. A lot of the roadblocks I kind of found back home as well. I'm very freshly new here, so I don't know if they're going to be the same, but I was also on this advisory board. It was Reiki for the military, and we noticed there was a lot of, we were trying to bridge the community into not just active duty, but veterans, offering different therapeutic solutions, which my business was included to help go through clutter and clear people's not just belongings but things in their head. But we'd offer Reiki, massage, yoga, things like that. And it just seemed like advertising was very difficult. You weren't allowed on base to do much at all. You couldn't put flyers, you couldn't sit out with a booth. And then if you did get a booth somewhere, you had to pay a lot of money to do it. And that was really difficult for a lot of the people. And then it was hard because a lot of members didn't have insurance that would cover these type of therapies, but a lot of people were really interested in a lot of these solutions. With my business too, I had to discount a lot because a lot of the families had children, which was okay, but in the long run, you know, we have to make a living as well. And I actually just noticed, I just did a coffee social, and that was the first time I got connections for, you know, job options and things that actually like existed. I made a couple phone calls for a couple different areas for just seeing if there's anything involved with housing, like, you know, if I needed to get approved, because like if I had to go work at people's houses, nobody had any idea like how people like, you know, like maid services or movers, not one person I called on housing had any clue about how, you know, people are allowed on base, because Bangor, it's, you know, gated, and it was like a big runaround. I was really surprised that, you know, or like babysitting, it seemed like there was a lot of red tape, which I really respect, because again, you're going into people's private homes, but it seemed like a lot of people wanted these, you know, solutions, but just couldn't either afford it and get connected. And another little side note, I think I have it here, I had the flyer for this, and I called the number, and when I called, the lady had no idea I had no idea about any of this. So I called, and yeah, I felt bad because I wanted to share it with other people, but then I don't know, I just didn't want to like send them to something that maybe was the wrong time or something. For this, yeah. So I called, and I was just surprised, and it just seemed like I've been getting a lot of that. But I do agree, I really liked the coffee social, but it seems like even some of the social media stuff kind of falls flat. Like people don't seem to, I don't know if it's a trust thing, which again I can understand, because you know, you're letting people into your personal lives. But again, like back home, like this Reiki for the military program, when we did do some of the meetups, and we would do a lot of free kind of like little seminars where people could try everything, and it was wonderful, but a lot of that was, you know, door to door, like very small local, like I knew the guy that owned the restaurant, so he was willing, you know, to do that, so that was really good. But to get on base and advertise, it was just a really big struggle. I mean, we called veterans, this was back home again, so I'm not sure.
So
sorry.
So when you were talking about the services where you would, sort of house cleaning, babysitting, and that, so it would be a spouse who was maybe, if you're in Groton, there is what, so can you explain that part about the limitations?
Yeah, so a lot of those services, like everybody, like even like, so I'm actually certified clutter clearing coach, so I'm certified and licensed. All the yoga instructors were licensed. Reiki, everybody had schooling, license, certificates, you know, degrees and everything. And these groups, it was hired by, I think, the one lady who ran it, and she would hire certain people to do certain things. So she'd have like a couple yoga teachers, a couple people, you know, who would do, or even offer nannying, so couples could come to, like, sometimes I think it was like a retreat that they were trying to offer. So those areas just seemed like, it just seemed like there was a lot of, I guess, like red tape to kind of get through to actually become one like that you could get approved through, like on base. Even here, when I asked about like nannying and stuff, it seemed like we had to go through I mean, I get it, like you have to do background checks and everything, but when I went to go do all the paperwork, it just seemed like a lot for when they kept saying, well, we need more, but it seemed very complicated to be able to do something that I've been doing for, you know, 16 some years. And it just seemed like that was something back home too, and I felt like a lot of families needed, you know, nannies or things that were affordable, but it just was very complicated to get approved to be in the actual on-base programs, I guess, if you will, if that makes sense. I don't know. So that kind of seemed, trying to think if there was any like solutions. Again, I do agree, it was Rachel. It did seem like the
smaller personal really seemed to get connected. That seemed to be like a really good solution, so I did enjoy that. And I'm gonna kind of keep searching for more in the different local areas to try to kind of spread awareness, I guess, and make connections. So that's it.
Very nice.
Other thoughts and experiences?
Does anyone online want to share?
Nadia?
I mean, if not, I can talk.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I married my husband. We met in college, and we got married right after college. I was not planning on getting married right after college, and we moved together to South Carolina. I struggled to find a job there, and that was when we were in the really difficult time and people weren't hiring really, so that was the excuse then. Then we moved 8 times in 8 years. So by the time you get established anywhere, you're moving again. Our last move, well, okay, let me back up a little bit. So I wanted to figure out a way where I could get employed anywhere we could go. So I earned my master's in education. I am working on my 3rd state teacher license, which apparently in North Kitsap you can't even substitute teach unless you have a Washington State teacher license. So I tried something different when we moved here, and I worked over in Seattle for a while. I was traveling 2+ hours daily one way. That's not sustainable, and especially since it was another entry-level job. So every time you move, you're starting over again. You're making the networking connections. That takes 6 months to a year to even like get your foot in the door. By the time you're established, you're moving. In addition to all of the other like family care, PCSing, whatever. I understand that military spouses shouldn't be discriminated against, but it's almost like employers don't fully understand or accept the challenges that military spouses face because it's seen as just another job. Your husband's working a job, you're working a job. It's no different. There are tons of mentorship programs out there, which are fantastic. Like ACP has a mentorship program, Veterati. I have done Onward Opportunity. I got certified in project management. And I was actually talking with someone at my most recent job, and they brought up having a sponsor and just not just a mentor, because a mentor, it doesn't really make a difference. Like, it does make a difference, but a sponsor would be probably more beneficial. In addition to the policy changes, other incentives, as opposed to, because I know a lot of companies are like, we offer medical benefits. I don't know about you all, but I never sign up for the medical benefits. Like, there's no reason to sign up for the medical benefits because we have TRICARE. So would it be possible to have incentives for military spouses as opposed to the medical benefits? Does that make sense?
Well, I'll share with you one benefit that we make available to military spouses and military family members here in Washington State, and we're the first state in the United States to do this. In January, when we go live with our new paid family medical leave system, military events count as paid leave events.
That's perfect.
So short notice deployment, military ceremonies, if your spouse is injured in active duty, and it's a broad definition of military family members who are eligible for this. It is spouses, but it's also if you have parents or if you have a sibling or another family member who needs to take care of the kids or those types of things. So Washington State is listening, and we've also now got California where this is going to go live in 2021 in terms of what's called military exigency, and Oregon also has picked this up. So, and I believe Massachusetts has as well.
So it's starting to spread. It's not live yet. Again, January it'll happen, and then hopefully we can get that across the country. And it's based on FMLA, but that doesn't include pay. Whereas this allows you to have some level of wage replacement. So
That's great.
starting.
Well, and that's even another struggle is you're expected to attend command events, but you're working, so.
Right. Well, and something I'm gonna take back to the team is you also have to generate enough hours to be eligible for the benefit. And this is why we're also trying to push, I'm mentioning to our Congress people here, a national paid family medical leave program would allow you to not have to worry about you've left your state and boom, you're done, right? It would allow you to not have to win the state lottery. So, yeah.
So let me make sure that I get this right when it comes to, because we've had this issue of spouses not accepting benefits to be able to sort of make up and get that employment. So are you saying that, for consideration for getting the job opportunities, foregoing the medical benefits and that being an incentive to the employer?
Yeah, that could be an incentive to the employer.
I mean, that's a pretty tough thing to give up, because that's not but at least it's an idea.
Right.
So we'll, just put it down.
Yeah, I think there is something in place that might help. Work opportunity tax credit, it's not expansive, but if you, as a spouse, were dislocated from your current work and relocated and applied and received unemployment, and then you found work at another employer, that employer could apply for work opportunity tax credit for someone that was long-term or short-term unemployed. There's two sides to that. So.
This is a really in the weeds question, but I thought if you were on TRICARE, I know with my daughter, she's in the service, she can't use any other health insurance. So is that just for the active member and not the family?
It's active duty, yeah. The family, you got options with the family.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because the family can sometimes, depending on, have a copay or not a copay or anything like that, and that would be the backup one.
The incentive you were talking about, that's federal or?
Right, it's the federal WOTC.
Other thoughts, impressions, stories to share?
So I was going to say, the career change thing, that is a huge thing because so my ex-husband was in the Army and then he went to reserves, and so I kind of knew going into it that it was going to be a 4-year, 3-year, whatever. I didn't go for anything, and I didn't know I had the option to go for anything. So I literally my resume could fill up a whole ream of paper because I literally did everything only because I knew that we'd be moving, and the more that I knew, the more valuable I could be because more jobs that I could apply for in the areas that it needed. So even now, I don't have any alphabets behind my name, but I can tell you I can do just about anything. So that is a lot. If you're not like super career oriented when you first get married, you're kind of like, whatever, I'll do whatever. I'll just follow you and get a job wherever I go. It's a whole lot harder because you really have to work. You have to comb over the paper constantly when you first move there to see exactly what they need. And then I'm going to tell a story again. As I moved to Astoria, and we were Coast Guard, so we don't get the 6 months you're moving here. You get the 2 weeks, hey, guess where you're going? We ended up going to Astoria, and I got there, and if you've ever been to Astoria, it's about this big. And they literally only hire the people that they either know or their neighbor or somebody they know is only going to stay there their whole entire life. So I applied and applied and applied. I probably applied for like a year before I walked into a Ross and had a temper tantrum, and she said, we're not really supposed to hire military because you're going away, because we train you and we don't know if you're going to be here. And then I said, I will be your best freaking employee. And I said, I don't care where you put me. put me in the stock room, put me in the fitting room, I don't care, whatever. And she said, okay, and she hired me, and I got employee of the month 7 months in a row, right before I had to transfer.
I want to ask the veterans in the room, including those who have been spouses and veterans, when you start, do you get coached on this point that was just raised in terms of being prepared, having your spouse be prepared for moving? Like, is there support for the veterans to help their potential spouse?
Yes, but the problem is, a lot of times, the information that is given to the active duty person does not get relayed to the spouse. And not a lot of times, I'd say 99.9% of the time, it doesn't. Whether they're distracted or they just got a binder full of information, you know, it gets buried in that one little section. Yes.
So what are your suggestions to be able to avoid that pitfall?
Well, I think that at least from the Navy side, I think we've at least tried to fix some of that problem by doing like a spouse transition type class. It's the same problem though. It's getting the word out to the people. You can blast things on social media. You can blast things in flyer format. You know, but if you're not sitting at a table, you know, at the commissary on payday, talking to people, they're not gonna know. You know, so.
The question was, are the members, those people when they serve, when you start your service, is there coaching done on basically how do you make sure that your spouse is well served over the course of your term of service?
I haven't.
Yeah. I don't even think there's coaching, yeah, it's just.
Well, Banner at least is starting a spouse in doc, and it's
Yeah.
it's starting right now.
Yeah.
And they have not had this before, but it's a new thing.
Correct. Because of that, the being lost in translation, because a lot of the messages never make it home. So they are trying to do it that way, but yet again, it's getting the word out. Another thing that I thought was really beneficial with another thing that they're offering like essentially online courses through Lead Family, which you can get remotely. You can pull it up at your house, and that helps. But yet again, people have to know about it.
What is a place that you have to go anywhere you go into a new station? The spouse.
Housing, sometimes, not necessarily
Navigate
the
the
obvious.
I never went to one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was
There's
never
really,
invited
I mean,
That's an ID.
Yeah.
technically
So
you're
you get
supposed
an
to.
ID card.
Yeah.
Just about every place has an in-processing center where the service member goes through, right? So
The servicemen are,
Let me ask that question a little bit differently. Okay. When you have received PCS orders, and this is for both the spouses as well as those who have served and are not spouses, because there are some people who are both. What are the first 3 things that the spouse does knowing where you're going to be PCS'd? What are the first 3 actions that you've taken?
He goes to move.mil.
Move.mil, okay.
The moving.
that's your household.
Oh,
That's how you
ourselves.
schedule your household. Needs.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's a good point.
We didn't, unfortunately, he got back from like a 9-month, he was on a sub, and then we had about a month to move out here. And nobody communicated with.
I'm not asking what they communicated. What did you do? You heard Washington State.
So,
and
well,
what did you do?
I went into where you're supposed to, housing, I think, where you're supposed to set movers. Nobody was available until after we had to be here. So then I started like getting boxes and calling out here, and they didn't have any housing available. So they said though, because I had some medical issues, if I signed up for like EMFP, I think. So I started that process. So I started the paperwork for that. And then when I sent it back to housing, and when it got all approved, I was able to get into housing. So I think I went into housing in Groton, and then called housing here, and then did the EMFP paperwork.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's kind of.
I heard somebody say Google.
I Google everything. I remember a time when we didn't have the access to everything, and you really did have to rely on the sponsorship program, and you had to rely, and the only reason I knew any of this is because I was a vet and I was active duty and saw it, learned about it, because that's what, you go through sponsorship program as part of command and all that stuff. And the average person does not get that information, but now it's super easy if people know how to Google. You Google Naval Base Kitsap, and you're gonna see the CNIC page. I don't wanna give them the acronym. You're gonna see the CNIC page, and you're gonna see Navy Life PNW, which we did a fantastic job here. I mean, I knew everything I needed to know for the most part. There's videos, everything.
Where was this?
On the Fleet and Family Readiness Navy Life PNW. I mean, everything I needed to know. School liaison information was all there, better than any place I've ever been, to be honest with you. So, and then Military One Source helps. Military One Source is great. You can get lots of information from them, or they'll point you in the right direction. And it really just depends on who you talk to. Sometimes you get somebody who knows what they're doing, and sometimes you don't, and you just have to call back and talk to somebody else. But Googling and then social media is the way to go.
Yeah.
You find groups of your peers, and you ask questions, or you use the search bar within a group, and you find the same question that you want, like, what's the best, I was having a hard time deciding where we were gonna live because I was looking at schools, and I have kids in both age groups, it's how do I figure out where's the best place to put my kids, So, and I still think that's common. I think that's the way to go. I just don't know that I would say that the younger generation does that in the same way. Like, we're talking 18, 19, 20-year-old spouses.
Yeah.
They don't have that connection. Those are the ones I'm talking about who definitely need the mentoring, hand-holding, this is how we do it, let me show you how piece,
I think for me, like, the social media can be like a little uncomfortable sometimes, because it's like you just share like you're moving, your house is gonna be vacant, stuff like that. I wish when we got here, and I don't know if this is something like realistic or affordable, but like when they ran us through the housing, we signed all this paperwork, and then also we were sitting there like, well, what about this and internet and this, and I kind of wish maybe somebody was like, maybe walked us through like the map, maybe spent like an hour just saying like, this is a map of the base, and this is like who you can go to for this and that. Maybe a few other little, like, I'm trying to think what else, but like, again, like that would have to be a one-on-one thing with everybody that moves in, so it's excessive, but I mean, I don't know, maybe like you said before, internet, the one-on-one really sunk in with people, maybe? Or the
I think
smaller-
that's the way it was done. We are connected in different ways, and I don't feel like we're connected in that same way.
Seems,
Was there any form of like orientation that you went through, or what for either of you when you came
I
in?
mean,
Or
unfortunately, I feel like maybe I dropped the ball on finding some of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't like anybody called me, like even from the FRGs. Like I thought, okay, I'm joining the FRG and a few things like this. I thought maybe they'd call and say like, hey, make sure you sign up for this, this, and this. So I might have kind of slipped. I should have maybe called around a little bit more. Just seemed like things were happening so fast, and then you get in your head too, like, okay, we're moving, and you just kind of lose focus on certain things, certain aspects.
Now, Elizabeth, you were gonna say something before.
Well, Mike actually was touching base because he said something about at passing ID, you all have to get your IDs changed. You don't have to get them changed.
They're good for several years. I think to answer some of the question too, we asked, is there a program out there that kind of indoctrinates and integrates spouses and provides that sponsorship? I would tell you, I think the answer is yes and no. I think the answer is yes if there's local emphasis at that duty station, and you guys can speak to this. Every place you go is different, so you'll go someplace, and the reason why I asked about the in-processing center, I've actually seen installations where they put an additional entry on there where you have to bring your spouse in and to do some orientation. The problem is that's only local emphasis based off of the local command or the local spouse community that's there that's really engaged, and it's not across all branches. They've tried with the Military One Source, there's military.com with the base guides, but I think unfortunately, where it sits is it's really at the local, and you guys can speak to this, as you go from base to base, you see some that do it better than others. And I think that's something kind of considered.
One of the questions I have for you, because I think you mentioned a number of things, and you talked about a little bit about the Fleet Family Support Center, the induct that they're doing at this point in time, and some of the other programs. So, like for instance, there's an orientation class, which is welcome aboard, those kinds of things, and there's a lot of resources that Fleet and Family Support Center offers. And we offer classes and also individual appointments. Is that something, or what are some of the barriers for Fleet and Family Support Center?
Well, if you are like me and you're working, like I went to I met with Susan DeWeese yesterday to do some resume touch-up, but I was on leave. I took leave to do that because those are her hours, and I understand that. You know, or you have somebody who's doing a part-time job or whatever, or has to deal with childcare, because for the Fleet and Family Center, you know, yes, there's a child-friendly area, but it's hard in a cubicle world to, when you have your 2-year-old who is busy because they're 2, you know, for you to focus on what you need to focus on to learn what job opportunities are there. No, it's huge. I mean, I've been in that position where like I couldn't access the resources because I didn't know anybody well enough to be like, here's my 2-year-old, let me go do something during business hours. I have appreciated the attempt to start extending some of those programs into the evening hour. I went to a CERT class about 2 months ago, and that was fantastic. I mean, I learned a lot at the CERT class. But accessing those resources, you know, even if we're aware of them, it's hard, you know.
I noticed, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I've been talking a lot.
I was just gonna put out there, I think the problem is the Navy, 'cause when my husband was in the Navy, and I went to ombudsman's, I went to the spouses groups, everything like that. So that was available to me, and you made those connections and you started making that. But then when you left there, you were still on your own trying to find a job and making the connections with the businesses. So it's not necessarily that the military isn't trying to be supportive of, it's that is not transitioning to the local businesses. Sure, they'll take our money, they want us to come there and live there, eat the food, everything like that, but when it goes to find the job, they don't want to employ us because we're about to leave again. We're always, so it's not that there isn't some of the support things out there, it's that there's this huge gaping chasm, is the word I'm looking, between military and business employment within your career field. It took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree because of my moves. I was making minimum wage that entire time. And unfortunately for me at that time too, I never got to use my husband's GI Bill. So I'm still paying for that degree. Because I didn't know that I could pay, that his GI Bill could help me pay for my degree. So there's that. But to continuously be working towards my degree, not having any way to transfer any of all the places I've been, all the tons of different jobs I had done, and have businesses in that area take that as something that was so great, because you realize how many spouses are so diverse, we have so much skill, we could bring so much to the table, but that's not being taken out to the businesses. And that's, to me, that's where it's lost. You're just trying and you've done so much and you have so much ability, but you can't make it in the world because, so you're working the minimum wage jobs with a degree, trying to take care of your kids, and being discriminated against.
So your suggestion is to be able to do more employer education in the community?
Yes, absolutely.
Because we have, the 10 reasons why you should hire a veteran. We really don't have the 10 reasons why you should hire a military spouse. So I think maybe that's something we can come up with together and be able to use that sort of as a jumping, springboard to be able to start, kind of that drum beat. And I think that may, start resonating, but okay, so employer education.
I thought about that when you got Employer of the Month 7 months in a row. You could have a little tagline, and I'm a military spouse.
Adrian.
I think one of the big problems with the whole communication part is these young men and women, they're working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Y'all see it sometimes. They get home, they're doing inspections, getting ready to go on deployment. all the information's thrown at them first thing in the morning. By the time 7 o'clock comes around in the evening, all that information, the last thing they're thinking about is that certification or that position. One of the things that I believe that Fleet and Family could do a better job at doing is, well, I don't want to say Fleet and Family, Department of the Navy anyway. JBLM does a really good job at having partnerships with several different employers, apprenticeship programs, being on base and present in people's spaces. But one of the things I don't see with Navy Region Northwest is having the ability to get employers on base. Having these different programs that are out there in the community presented live and in person, somebody you speak to, somebody that, because to get from the pier way down at at Bangor, you gotta go through like 8 gates to get to the ship, you know, for those of you that are familiar with the submarines. For a sailor to break away during their workday, come all the way to WorkSource Kitsap for any kind of resource, that takes like 3-4 hours a day. Being senior enlisted, myself, retired, you know, having a sailor come up to me and ask about something like this, you know, to support their spouse, you know, not only do I have to support them, but I have to support other people. But if we had those resources somehow presented on base, it would make a world of difference, I believe. And that's how we could actively engage with soldiers, sailors, and anybody that's transitioning and their families. Because some of these veterans do want to be there with their spouses and to be supportive of them, whether it be whether it be for childcare, whether it be for job search assistance, things like that. So that way it's a team effort, you know, if they're not just making decisions one side or anything like that. Well, here's what I learned while you're at work all day. So anyways, that's my input on that.
Thank you very much. Now you're a leaver as well, right?
I am.
So as a local veteran employment rep, you also reach out to and meet with a lot of employers here.
Absolutely.
To help them think about, to Alfie's point, the value proposition of veterans.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not funded to do the same thing for spouses, correct?
That's correct.
Emphasizing that you are.
But we have a really strong partnership with Fleet and Family Support.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I just Adrian, don't so fast to close.
And to that point, the JVSG grant is all veteran type activities, and you know there's the huge messaging about taking care of the spouses, but there's no resources that come behind that, which really puts us at a disadvantage. On top of all the other things that they go through, where, you know, how do you find the military spouse? You have to self-identify. Well, you don't want to do that. Why? Because if you self-identify, then people don't want to hire you. So this counterintuitive way of trying to tackle that. But if we could, at the federal level, and there's things we could do at the local and state, but at the federal level, if we could make some tweaks to some policies and maybe throw in some of those incentives, where then at the local and state level, we can champion those, and really, I think that's how we can make a difference, I think.
Another aspect on that is WIOA, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, has some coverage for military spouses, but they are covered within the category of dislocated worker and displaced homemaker. And I'm sorry, that is just not giving them the honor that they deserve. And so as we think about WIOA reauthorization, something to consider is how do we call out these incredible patriots and the work that they do in order to also better serve them. So that's something else to consider that is in your purview.
Rename it. When you redo it, rename it.
Absolutely. It's calling it out and addressing that. So
I tried to write it out, but it didn't work out.
Mike.
So I'd like to point out, I think another great place, this is a suggestion that wherever this goes forward, I know the Transition Council is very proactive throughout the state, but we start bringing in chambers of commerce, because those are local folks that have a direct impact in our communities. Mm-hmm. So I know the Silverdale and Bremerton chambers both have a military emphasis where they have ambassadors, and
Yeah.
And that's their sole focus, but I think they could be a strong force to partner in this.
Well, when Alfie and I do this compilation of what we've heard, we aren't gonna be able to be the only ones telling that story. So we're gonna need your help. We're gonna come back to you all to share your stories about what your experiences have been. So it's one thing for us to recount it, it's another thing for those who've been through it themselves to share those stories. So I absolutely agree with you in terms of the role that the chambers play and bringing them to the table, so to speak, and employers. Kathy?
Well, kind of behind that,
Can you come up here so that the hockey pucks can hear you?
Hockey pucks. I'm addressing. Okay, my military wife experience is from the 70s, and I know that the situation is drastically changed, or I please hope so. I was a young bride, so I didn't have a career path laid out when I became a military bride spouse. I just followed wherever we got sent, and every place I went, I landed through a lot of hard work because of the preconceived notion that if you let them know that you were military, they weren't going to hire you. I got to work in kitchens, I got to work in warehouses, until I met the retired military wife who owned a dress shop, and she said, come on down. And so that was great, but it took that one, and when we got when we got our orders to go on to the next place, it was through her network I found my next job, in my next our next duty station. Now fast forward to now, and my daughter-in-law has gone through this multiple times as a military spouse, and her answer is an answer not everyone can have. But she does not have a formal education, so she launched into an online business, which is absolutely saved her sanity. As the boys got older, she had more time, but it also is highly portable. But 2 duty station changes in, she used to have a physical retail presence, and she doesn't even try anymore. Just cannot do that. So my suggestion when you're looking for some solution ideas is take some of this pot of money and throw it at community businesses through the Chamber of Commerce. Make an incentive to hire military spouses, if it's taxes, but make that what the name of it is, something so it's not hidden in the verbiage somewhere, but that it's absolutely identified as this is in support of transitioning military spouses. So that's what I got.
But you bring a really good point, and that's entrepreneurship. You know, because if the kind of thing that needs to also be fostered as options. And part of that is going to, probably be business incubators and be able to connect spouses to business incubators so that you can sometimes follow your passion and your passion become your business, like you're trying to launch yours and ensure that you're able to have that as a portable. So, this online businesses and entrepreneurship is something that is important, just like Rachel and apprenticeships. And I know military spouses go, me a carpenter, me a plumber, but these are the careers now that are paying a lot of money. And a carpenter is needed in Germany, as they are in Italy, as they are in anywhere in the world. And we need to start thinking outside of that box of traditional employment and being able to take a look at these careers too. So, that's one of the reasons that she's here, to listen and be able to see how to start, diverting a little bit of what she's doing with veterans and start focusing on you, the spouses.
Another thing that has happened is the National Labor Exchange that's run by the National Association of State Workforce Agencies now has a virtual job labor exchange. So that is something that we need to look at I'm looking at you, Jason. The Employment Security Department needs to look at how do we surface that through WorkSource Law and help people see that, because that is where, doesn't matter where you are in the world, you could be doing that virtual job. And that too is something that didn't exist in the 70s. A virtual job, that means a job that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
But now a virtual job is one that is portable to wherever you may go. So that is something else that we need to follow up on and better surface through our own resources that we have.
So are you talking about like a TaskRabbit or something online, like gig work, or?
It's a variety. I mean, you have Amazon wanting to hire developers that live wherever, right? WordPress, the company WordPress, like when you use WordPress or when you use Wikipedia, Wikipedia, not WordPress, the company who runs Wikipedia, the organization, they don't have offices. They are 100% virtual. You could live on a farm in Okanagan, you could live in the city, you could live wherever, and you can do that job. So those are the virtual jobs that I'm talking about, and there's an increasing number of them. So that's what I mean.
So how do we put those in the hands
Yeah.
of the spouses working through the military bases? Is going to be sort of the, not $64,000 question, but the, one of the tasks that we need to work on together.
I'm gonna just do a comment about Lucy, sorry, but when she at one point got moved, she was at a company and then she said, I'm moving, and they said, oh, well, you can move 10 states away, but you'll work from home for us. And she did that for how many years?
I did it for 2 years.
2 years, so.
Teleworking.
Yeah, from a in-place employer to a teleworking situation.
It's great.
So, yeah.
Well, and we do that with the Employment Security Department. We allow all of our call center individuals to telework, so that helps reduce that. We're still working on how they do that if they leave the state. One thing we are also working on is how do we actually build up a call center that focuses primarily on hiring military spouses, and where we actually are excited about people who will be here 18 to 36 months, where it's a short learning curve, and where we embrace them for the time that they're here. And I think that other employers could and should be looking at that as well. What are the jobs that they already have that are designed for that? Now, what we haven't touched base on here, interestingly, is licensure and licenses. And so I would ask, and I know we haven't, Aravia has not been speaking, but with an 11-month-old, I can understand why. But I'd love to hear anybody's feedback or thoughts with regards to licensure and their experience or their spouse's experience.
It's fun.
There you go.
It's just a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. It's so many hoops that you have to jump through. Let's see, most recently, I went back to, because I'm still trying to get my Washington State teaching license, and I went back to the university that I graduated to prove that I am in fact qualified to teach in Washington State, because I have only 2 years of experience, like professional teaching experience in an elementary school, and in Washington State you need 3 years. And then there are like 6 different options for different licenses that you can get just within Washington State. So it took me a while to figure out which license to even apply for. And then, yeah.
So Melinda is on the phone from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Melinda, you still on?
Melinda, you'll need to unmute yourself. There you go.
It's Melinda.
Hi, so I'm actually going to have Jawaria answer some of these questions. She's been with OSPI longer than me. So if you're looking to get your teacher certification, unfortunately, since we are the Human Resources Office, what you can do is I could provide you with my email address and I could connect you to the correct person in our certification office, and they're really helpful. If you'd like, I believe I could actually type my email address in the comment section. Do you have any other specific questions that maybe I might be able to answer for you?
I mean, I've been talking back and forth with the certification department, so I've been asking them the specific questions. But yeah.
But this is not just her issue. It has been a very common trend among, and we're so happy that you're you're jumping in with us, and hopefully will be for the rest of the sessions that we have, because I think we need to work together on this particular area. We know that there are provisional licenses that have been granted and all that, but yet that doesn't negate the slew of classes and things that our military spouses have to do, and many of them have taught overseas and in many different situations that actually make them even more qualified than somebody that's been just in one single place. So I think as we go along, we'll need to be able to get your voice and some of your suggestions to be able to ensure that we can find solutions that will work, especially for teachers, because we need them. They're here, but they're not able to practice.
Well, and that's the other thing, is you can't even apply for jobs until you have your certification. So that puts the job finding on hold until you have the certification.
I should also note that Doug Asbjornson, he's a retired Navy admiral, runs I think it's the Troops to Teachers program, and they provide concierge services at OSPI for military spouses and veterans who need to transfer their teaching credential.
Well, we need to get that information, to them.
So at the next listening tour, I could actually invite Tang and Tang Smith and Doug Asbjornson. They're in charge of our Troops to Teachers program, and they could probably provide more insight in regards to the different programs and then the resources that can help military members and military spouses into for teaching certification.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Do we have any other observations or experiences that people would like to share?
So, we're here listening and trying to come up with solutions. So something maybe outside the box to consider. So the DoD has a program called the DoD Skill Bridge. I don't know if many of you are familiar with it, but it's a program where transition service members, while they're still on active duty, can actually go into internships, and there's a variety of internships. It's more than apprenticeships, it's internships. And you have a lot of organizations out there, Hire Our Heroes, Hire Military, there's several of them that are out there that are connecting the dots, bringing transitional service members, actually putting them in internships. It's a win-win. The company gets the service member for 4 to 6 months. They don't have to pay their salaries because they're still getting paid active duty. And then usually there's like a 90% hire rate after that. So maybe kind of throwing ideas up against the wall, kind of using that business model, maybe that's something that could be looked at to maybe be expanded to the military spouse. Obviously, we won't have that active duty pay to be able to support that, but maybe we can provide some incentives for some of these companies like Hire Our Heroes, Hire Military, all these companies that are out there that already have the business pipelines that are connected with employers, provide them incentives to actually bring in the military spouse population and maybe start trying to connect them through internships to at least get the process started. And then we can kind of further that, and maybe within that, maybe it's virtual jobs that are out there, so it's something sustainable, so we can bring them in, leverage these companies that already have built employer pipelines, and then add, maybe there's something in there for putting virtual, so it's something that's sustainable. So just kind of trying to throw ideas out there as I kind of listen to everybody, so something to think about.
We have a comment here on our Facebook said that has already actually been expanded to spouses, so I'll have to check more on that.
And we know that just a few months ago, we meaning the careers program, graduated the first all-spouse Microsoft Software Academy. 18 weeks, I believe. It's maybe a little bit longer than that. But when you graduate, usually are either hired by Microsoft if you're in the top percentile, or other organizations will hire you because it's about programming. And these careers start at about $70,000 a year. So there's already some inching towards that, but there needs to be more of it.
Yeah, so another comment popped up just saying that hiring heroes includes spouses as the funds allow for the various programs there.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's very, very limited, and nothing against them, but it's a business model because there's no incentive for them to bring in the spouses. But at DoD, if we want to really make a dent in this issue that we're having out there, I think it's something we could look at and consider.
Elizabeth had a comment about the Microsoft Academy because the library had an information session next door a couple of evenings several months ago, and I asked her to attend. So you had a comment about that, how that might be improved a little bit, the agreement there?
So I attended that, and
Can you get a little closer to the microphones, please? Yeah.
So, yes, I attended that, and I found that program would have been interesting to attend even for myself. But she says what they were wanting for the spouses that were interested, they could not hold a full-time job. Their whole purpose was just to go and focus on the school only. And so I said, so not even a part-time? She says, no, because you have to be focused on that program. So that means if you were working, full-time or part-time, they wanted you to stop working.
Yeah, it has to be, it's a 1-year program in 18 weeks, so it's highly concentrated, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So one of the things we'd like to do in the final half hour is I would like to ask everybody who's here to share what their key takeaway is and what they're going to do with what they heard here today. And if you could keep it pretty brief,
Please.
We've got a lot of people in the room. So what's your key takeaway and what are you going to do as a result of what you heard today? So I'll model this, and that is that my key takeaway is that there are really interesting, innovative programs happening. I'm looking at you, and it's Lara? Anna. I heard Lara. Anna. For example, what's in Bangor, and that we need to learn more about. And my key go-do from today continues to be what we can do to amplify your voices and address change at the state and at the federal level.
My key takeaway is that we need to look at the new military spouse, at the brand new one, because many of them are not transferring, they're getting married here, and they're gonna be here for another year or so, and what can we do to be able to get that person connected, because they may be living out in the community and don't have the benefit of being in the base. So what can we do to be able to start short-circuiting this issue of the movement if we can get to them very early on as they get married?
Okay, so chiming in on this, I think that one of the interesting things from a historical standpoint is how this is kind of the unintended consequences of the all-volunteer service. And so instead of just 2 years where you get drafted and then, so I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Sticking with that sort of research piece is to justify funding to support programs that are going to support spouses. I think one of the strongest things is the healthy family makes a better service member. And so if you can have a healthy home life, which means a spouse that's productive and functional, and that's, you know, it's kind of connecting the dots, but the research must be there. I think that also a micro lending option for starting business, some sort of, you know, I know that there are business loans available, but really look at that original micro lending, which tends to support females, but, you know, very much. And then the last thing is, you know, when you talk about the family, or there's the military here, there's this relationship. When I'm thinking about businesses that have that nationwide presence, I'm thinking about the bigger corporations. And, you know, there are the people that have the credentials that a lot of things need to be addressed, like the teaching situation. There are also a lot of young people that need that entry-level work. And so, you know, if you're 18, 19, and there's some sort of relationship with a larger franchise that's all across, to say, okay, well, they're trained at Safeway here, so should they work at Safeway there? And I mean, some of those careers are very good. So that idea of the relationships with the bigger corporations that have that can sort of, and I knew that supposedly you're supposed to be able to transfer, but it doesn't always happen. So those are the 5 things I'm going to be looking at.
So a number of things that actually come up to me. I think one of the things that I've heard is really the idea of Clayton Family Support Center, getting the word out there. And I think we have had, it's hitting a rock all the time. There are multiple things, all of the things that you guys address, or a lot of the resources are out there, are untapped resources. I mean, I can't tell you, having been the director over here at Naval Base Kitsap for the last 9 years, I know we have had to cancel a number of classes that would have been extremely beneficial. And I think we're always moving forward to figure out a different way of bringing that about for the spouses and the families on things. So it's a rock that we hit constantly, but I'm pushing forward on this. And we are looking at bridging better partnerships and figuring out how to bring people more on board. We have talked a little bit about some mini job fairs. We have people come in for the transition classes, but even mini job fairs at the base to be able to bring spouses and families in so that they have that conversation and don't have to wait, you know, twice a year to go to a job fair that's just ginormous, but having those employers actually there on a regular basis. So that's something that we've looked out already and have been talking about. So these are some of the takeaways that I have on my list.
I took a lot of notes and I'm really excited. Several things that were mentioned on a federal level that I'm excited to share with the congressman and see what our team can do. And then just me, for a personal note, with doing outreach in Kitsap County, I'm excited to connect with some military spouses and communities and whatnot. If that would be appropriate, I'd love to do that.
I'm thinking a lot about the work that I do with Elizabeth and some of the other local area directors and equal opportunity officers and the training that we do around equal opportunity for the folks who work for both Employment Security Department and then also all the other folks. So looking at the information that you're gathering so that we can take that into consideration, and then also providing more information to all of the staff about some of the barriers that the spouses are facing, and then also some of the ideas that we have here, and some other ways that we can do outreach, because I think that's really important, one of the things that we're hearing.
What's that with bringing in the chambers of commerce? It would be nice if we could also have like an event that brings in these spouses, and so they're able to have that one-on-one with an employer.
For several things, but at first I just want to thank you guys for coming and lending your voice to this, because it's such a great to hear other spouses' stories, because the struggle is real. We're all out there, we're all doing this, so it's great to hear your stories. Thank you so much. So that was the number one thing that I take away. I love filling that gap, you know, that there's people out there still struggling just like I did, and I'm sure other spouses do. So, you know, the other events that we have need to reach those other spouses and let them know that this is here and available for them, and their voice can be heard as well.
So I'll tell you, just being someone that's recently retired, just retired out of the Army after 27 years, and watching my spouse for the last 25 years, we've been married, go through much of what you guys had put forward there. I mean, really, being on active duty, I'm very limited on what I could do. As far as we see the issues, we talk about it. We brought in spouses, and we would, you know, throw the issues around and try to come up with solutions. But now I'm really excited for the fact that now that I have taken the uniform off and I'm in this new role here in the Veterans Trust, I really want to gather all the information, all the stories you guys are telling, couple that with my experience that my wife and I had over my military career, and start having some candid conversations about what we can do to really make a difference and make a change in this space. And so that's kind of what I'm looking to do, leaving out of here. And to your point too, I really want to thank you guys for coming out. We know this is something that you know, you got to take a leap of faith to come out here and tell your story, but really we really can't bring that message forward if you guys don't tell the story. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I just I think taking back here, just want to once again remind everyone that if you do have events that you would like to share, communications@dva.wa.gov, and I've got a bunch of cards here. A great way to share your flyers with us so we can get those posted on our calendars. Another way is connecting with Mark to just kind of take the consensus of the different listening sessions and reporting that back, and help to kind of tell that story back to the spouses and the groups that we've met with about kind of what we've heard and what we'll be doing moving forward. And then just connecting with, I hear a lot about kind of some of the different Facebook groups and things that we can be a part of, where we can learn a lot of information for, trying to connect in some of those groups, so then that way we're kind of more eyes on what events could be taking place. Maybe we can assist with brochures and other events as well too, to provide for some of those events to help kind of with readiness there.
And so again, I kind of work with the apprenticeship field. So one thing that, if people don't know, you usually get veterans preference, right, when you go into the apprenticeship fields. So we've talked to a lot of the unions, said, why can't you get spouse preference, right? So if you walk in, why can't you get that extra 10 points on your application as well? And so it's a little bit of a big lift that we worked on, because they are federal type agencies. But we do work with the local, like Sound Transit, for example, some of these large businesses, and say, okay, you know, whether or not we can get spouse preference up front, can you get spouse preference for employing them once they're in the apprenticeship program? So how do we do that? How do we get into the local economy and say, okay, let's get the actual employers to get to know what some opportunities are? So some of that stuff is what we're working on now. I think we're going to continue to work on that. Also, we do actually go and brief the apprenticeship coordinators. And so I talk about military culture, and so we have these conversations with them. And I think what I need to do is actually to change that to change that a little bit, the messaging a little bit more towards the spouses when we do those type of briefs, so just so they have a little bit more knowledge on that end too. So just kind of making those connections.
I just want to add to what you're saying. For those folks who are representing our congressional delegation here today, and that is specifically with spouse preference. The federal government does it for federal government hiring. They have a spouse preference that they've put in place. We're looking into that for Washington State, but something for you all to think about is, are there mechanisms for where there is federal funding going in to incorporate or think about some elements of spouse preference, including in our apprenticeship funding that happens from the Department of Labor. So something for you to think about.
So mine's a little different than Navy because it's Coast Guard, but I found out the reason they don't have family support groups is because Seattle doesn't have a housing base. So they do a lot of the geo housing, which I just learned about too. And so poor Heather has been working her little hiney off trying to figure out a way to get all the spouses connected, because there's really no way, because it's Department of Homeland Security, it's a little different, so we can't share addresses and stuff like that. So I'm gonna figure out how to get a way to do a fleet and family thing for the Coast Guard, so they can find employment. If they do move here, it's a little more expensive, that's why they do it. But for the ones that do come over, they need something because there's literally no communication.
For my part, I heard somebody mention the spouse indoctrination they're talking about, and the DBOPS and they just recently adopted it within the last year, Nancy, where we've been going on base for the spousal indoc. They have it once a quarter, and next week it's going to be the fourth one. Well, yeah, so it's already coming up on a year. But one of the standout things for us has been the WIOA program, which is Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And, that seems to be a real strong selling point to them. And so we're going to continue to push that. But there was a couple of spousal groups that were out there that I hadn't heard of, which I plan to engage and get more involved with that, just to put the word out of what our services are. And plus, I love coffee, so perfect. So, there you go.
One of the things I've heard from all these wonderful ladies is about not knowing about the resources that we have. And I think me as a supervisor of our vet team, being able, we provide great support to our vet team and making sure that the information is out. But one of the things I can do is I can help in relation to getting the information out to our veteran military spouses through social media. We have a lot of different groups that Adrian just mentioned that have different sites that we can get that information out to them. And I think that's very vital, because myself and Mike, we were very instrumental in getting the information out to our military spouses for this event. And so we can just use this as a springboard to make sure we get a lot of great information out to our military spouses through those different mediums that we have through social media.
So for me, listening about licensure, transitioning programs and employment, took a lot of notes on that, and so I'll be able to pass that on to my DC veteran staff, and hopefully be able to make those transitions better for you guys, and so that's what I plan on doing. So that's a big takeaway, big takeaways I took from this meeting.
I wanted to say first, thank you for having us and listening to our stories. And there are a lot of resources out there. I tend to do a lot of research on it, but I want to share more of it, and especially to the younger spouses. They don't have any idea, so that's the goal.
I had two of them were involving partnerships. I'd be very interested in trying to partner with Britt and see if there's any way we can connect with resources that way. Also, the troops to teachers. My background is in education, more years than I admit to being alive as a teacher and school administrator. Maybe make some kind of partnership with OSPI, trying to get for a very specific demographic within the spouses. And third, just practically as a workforce specialist, as I'm meeting with people, if I meet with a veteran and I don't always do that. So thank you for being a reminder to do that.
So for me, and Deb and I were just talking about that, but I'm also seeing if we can go ahead and be in partnership with Brett as well, because I would love to have a presence there. And then there was one piece that wasn't mentioned in here, but a lot of times I find that the spouses are looking for local churches to attend, and I have the churches that I attend. I have military spouses that they're looking for places they need to find employment, so I can also help with in that area as well to pass or maybe some flyers for our work sources or other resources out in the community.
Well, I'm just very humbled and thankful that I was a part of this event. So it was nice to be heard and share with like-minded individuals. And I think my takeaway would be that this really encouraged me to just kind of keep chipping away at the resources and just kind of seeing what will work, what won't work, and just really not giving up because it's out there and other people have succeeded. So I'm just like a little bit more encouraged from all this today.
I want to follow up with you as well in terms of your staying simple. I have some ideas for you from a women's entrepreneurship effort.
Beautiful. Okay.
We'll talk after.
Thank you.
Well, for one, I want to echo what everybody else has said, but because this was important to me, because it's important to me, I've been doing this for a while, and just like she was saying, there are a lot of younger spouses, and I'm on a one-to-one basis with people all the time, and I like to be able to relay information to people. I literally will I make copies of things, like, you need to do this, you know? So I had no clue about WorkSource. I mean, I think I'd heard it briefly, but I didn't really know what was going on here. So I feel like I'm gonna probably take some time to visit here a little bit more and get to know it more for myself. Same for the VA stuff. It's I know there's stuff available, but you know, it's actually accessing the resources that's the connecting the dots. So those are key takeaways for me, that I can actually utilize the resources and pass that information on. That's good.
Are there work sources all over, or is it just around
Yes,
the military?
we have about 50 different facilities across the state, 70 total in terms of different centers and stuff. Like you'll go into a place that have a little center, but a little resource. But we have 50 different locations across Washington State. But in every state, there are what are called American Job Centers, and they're funded by the Department of Labor. And they started way back decades and decades ago, and so have services like this all across the United States.
Is it for everybody, or is it just for everybody?
It's for everyone.
Okay, because we have a ton of veterans who come into our building, and I have nowhere to send them. And then I was like, and then I started hearing about the work source. So if I have one.
So closer to you, we have a facility in Auburn.
That's Auburn is where
Yep.
our building is.
Perfect. So we have WorkSource Auburn that is very comprehensive in its services like we have here.
Okay.
And so it's a perfect place to send folks.
Okay.
And just mentioned to Susie a moment ago that maybe we should have all of these listening sessions at WorkSources, because there's, it's such an incredible place to be able to get, for employment and coaching and mentoring and education. So I think we may do some modification here.
You can have it in my building.
There we go. Mike?
My personal takeaway is communication, and it'll be my personal mission to strengthen the communication between WorkSource that will be in partnership with Jeff, Adrian, and I already know Nancy's going to step up to offer the same, and you're going to get that regional support. And my action item will be immediately when we're done. I already handed off a card to you. I'm going to hand my business card to the other spouses. I have the emails from Mark with the other spouses that are attending remotely, and we will be in touch so that we can tighten the gap on the communication. I'm going to reach out to Britt and see how we can further support, because we offer similar services, but then we offer differing services, and there is a place where each organization, including WDVA, can have an impact on every facet of the conversations that we've had. So, and then I want to get with you, find out when those groups are, so that we can attend. And I've got some resources for local entrepreneurship for you as well. So, perfect.
And then as a vet rep, I'd like to kind of increase my networking opportunities to help get the word out. And a takeaway I have is we already work with Fleet Family, Adrian and I'd just like to continue to keep that going.
I want to thank you ladies for being here. I know you're coming here on your personal time, and so the takeaways I have is I most definitely think that we can do a better job of marketing and promoting our services in the community. It always amazes me. I'm just astounded that you'd never heard of Workforce. And so thank you, Jeff, for thinking about how we can use social media in the way that we marketed this session. What stood out, one of the discussions that stood out with me was related to I think it was you, Alfie, that talked about promoting the benefits of hiring a military spouse, because we have our siloed populations that we work with. And I think that is a great idea to put together a work group to look at that, because in my reading, I know that military spouses tend to be more educated than their civilian counterparts. When I listen to you, and I'm lending Susie a book called what was the name of it? Silent Sacrifice. And so other benefits would be hiring someone who is resilient, adaptable, flexible, has powerful change management skills, just listening to your stories that you shared with us. I think that there's an opportunity for us to have a presence on base with our labor exchange staff to work with the spouses to complement the work that Fleet and Family Support Center is doing. We wouldn't be duplicating, and I think Britt and I talked a little bit about this. I've been wanting to, where are you? Right here. Got you. And so we've been wanting to have a presence for a long time on base, beyond our disabled veterans outreach program specialists and our local veterans employment specialists. So I'm really excited about being able to do that. And so that you can be aware of the resources that we have. Also, finally, I think this is the fourth one, we have employers on site here every day. And some of them, very competitive wages. We have veterans on site. We do a really great job of marketing our veterans population. You saw the bell upstairs. People come in and ring the bell, going to work. We put people to work every day. And so I'm hoping that we can maybe have some targeted events for military spouses. And also, you started a networking group for veterans. Why not consider a networking group for military spouses so that you can connect with each other and be aware of all the resources available? So maybe adding that to our array of services. So there's more, but I'm not going to take up any of this time.
Well, I think it's a really important point, and in terms of also federal funding, as we think about our unemployment insurance, the RESEA program is about how do you get people back to work. Well, the crazy thing that happens is that when a military spouse moves, they then are eligible for unemployment insurance. And if the military wants to reduce, they don't have to pay it for the spouses, they pay it for the members of the military when they transition out of the service. But there's an interesting impact to our economy for those who become unemployed, not just underemployed. So something else we can look at. I'm going to look at you again, Jason, for taking a note on that to do some of that analysis with our labor market team. Alfie's always gets the last word.
Want to give a chance to the folks online?
Online, absolutely.
So we've got Heidi Audette, Christine Moreland, Terry Garcia Hernandez, and Melissa Ohm. Do you, anyone want to share any of their closing thoughts?
Well, this is Terry, and I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be on the listening regarding military spouses. And for me, I would like to continue to learn about the services, network with agencies to assist our military spouses in our areas, because we have a lot of military spouses that move to our areas, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Okanagan, and Douglas County. And my takeaway is, I assist veterans, and I also network with employers, and I want to be able to promote our military spouses as well, you know, when I do outreach to our employers. So that's my takeaway. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else want to share any closing thoughts?
This is Christine Moreland, and I think from the human resource aspect of it, hearing that our employers aren't as well educated as far as the value that military spouses bring, I think is something that we can look at and help in our role as far as educating those employers and actually helping them to see the value that our military spouses bring. And it was very interesting to hear those stories, and I appreciate that everyone has shared that information. And definitely we can look at training programs and things as HR within our companies to help educate and get it so that the positions and employers are looking more at the value they do bring to the talent pool that we're looking to hire.
Excellent.
This is Joria from Superintendent of Public Instructions. Kind of piggybacking on what Christine had mentioned is I really appreciate the military spouses who had shared their stories today. We definitely do have to do a lot of training and educating of our hiring managers in order for them to see the value that our military spouse members bring. And then also just making sure that I invite my colleagues who are in our certification office to the table. That way they can be a good resource, and we can make the changes that we need to ensure that our transitioning members and our military spouses are getting the necessary resources needed to pursue, you know, their certification and education.
Maria, I also will ask now Mark Sullivan and Gary to send you the links to the videos from the previous sessions for you to share with the certification team. And I would beg you to have them watch those videos. It is heart-wrenching in terms of the experiences that folks have had, especially in the teaching profession, in transferring their incredible knowledge and abilities.
I will definitely share that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
So we have a national security issue. I can't imagine that your spouses are relaxed and able to focus on their jobs when they hear your stories. Just Monday evening in Whidbey, there was an active duty member who joined his spouse. Actually, he brought his spouse because of what she is going through right now. And he actually said, I don't know that I can continue in the service, given what my spouse is going through. It is a national security imperative that we have our members of the military be ready and resilient and not stressed out about the well-being of their family. We also have that, especially among our enlisted members, now with housing prices going through the roof and cost of living going through the roof in places like Washington and elsewhere across the country, people can't afford to live on a single income. So we have these facts that require that we take action. I am so impressed with this group and so appreciative of the people who came together today for this conversation and to kick off a lot of action that we need to take on your behalf and on behalf of those that you also represent and those who are watching online. So we can and will do more because also our employers need the talent. In the next 5 years, there are going to be about 740,000 jobs available here in Washington state alone. We don't have the people to fill those jobs. So we need the talent. So I thank everybody for participating in this, and we're going to make it happen. Alfie?
Susie and I have an arms race right now. You know, she committed to hire more military spouses inside of ESD. And I just want to tell you that today, this morning, I did a new employee orientation with 4 of our new, new employees. 2 of them were veterans. 3 of them were veterans and military spouses. You know, so we're just in competition here to make sure that we really look at this pool of talent. And I will tell you that whenever we have a talent pool or a new position in our agency, one of the first things that I ask, how many of them are spouses, how many of them are veterans, to make sure that we have a good selection pool to choose from, because sometimes you don't know the opportunities. So we need to dig a little deeper to make sure that we know that you're looking, and part of that is going to be signing with the Employment Security Department, because you can sign with WorkSource, and WorkSource, that carries you, I think, throughout the country. Once you sign on, you just refresh, and you should be able to, to be in tune with opportunities and all. So we're glad that this is happening here, because this is, a not well-known jewel, and I think the more spouses know about this office, and then them actually reaching into the base, the better off spouses are going to be. So again, thank you for your service. You serve, and thank you for serving, your family, and we hope that as we go through this process, that we're going to make a difference locally and ultimately nationally.
Thank you all so much.